The Pirates dropped 3 of 4 to the Cubs over the weekend, and I'm here to tell you, in almost every way, they played this series exactly as they're constructed. Let's dig in next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Pirates. I'm Gary Morgan. What a frustrating weekend in Chicago. We're going to talk about that quite a bit. We're going to talk about things the Pirates could actually maybe try to do to fix the offense at least a little bit. And I think we need to talk a little bit about the fifth spot in the rotation, at least as far as the starting rotation goes, because there's been a lot of frustration about who is and isn't a part of it. And I just think it's worth a discussion at this point. The sad thing is about this series, it was by design. This team was built to pitch their ass off and win low-scoring games. And this series, it was the ultimate in-your-face proof that it rarely works, even when it does. There's so many reasons this team should move on from Ben Cherington, but this series to me is the one that should really make up the bulk of his obituary here, because he built it to do exactly what it's doing. Ben Cherington knowingly built a team with a ceiling of 500. If most things went right. And guess what? We've been watching after replacing the manager who excelled in making sure every aspect underachieved. That's right. Just about 500. They can pitch like very, very few teams can. And they hit like some AAA teams would be embarrassed to produce. You know? In this Cubs series, the Pirates scored 7 runs and the Cubs scored 9. That's hardly a drubbing, but they lose 3 of 4. When Bob Nutting fired Derek Shelton, and yes, it really was him, he did so early enough in the season that the Pirates could have potentially changed course in a few areas. He even suggested that those were the marching orders that he gave to everyone in the organization. Everyone. I would assume Ben Cherington's part of that, right? The Donnie Kelly change, that's worked. I think Don Kelly has gotten more out of the talent that he has been given than Derek Shelton did. I think he has this team playing about as good as they're capable of playing. Could they hit a little better here and there? Yeah, I think so. And we'll talk about that. But I don't think that they're so far underneath by anybody's standards that there's some kind of mystery hitting instruction that they're missing out on. I think based on the talent that I see on this team, they're playing about as good a ball as I think you can expect. Ben Cherington has done almost nothing. It's almost as though he felt getting Spencer Horwitz back, I don't know, Nick Gonzalez, that they'd be right up there ready to make the pitching work, just like they got in Chicago. I mean, this dude didn't even show up to record his weekly puff piece with the Pirates announcers this Sunday. Again. Which is just as well, because he wouldn't have given any real answers about their path forward anyway. But I honestly can't believe that's being allowed. I mean, if you've ever been a boss of somebody, you ever give somebody like a pretty stern warning and you really think that the message got through, and then 5 minutes later, they're in your office telling you that they've got some special circumstance they never could have seen coming, and they've got to leave early on Friday because they've got something important that it's only going to come up once, and the planets are only going to align this way that one time for me to do it. And you let them do it because it's just easier, and you almost think to yourself, I I never should have given this person a second chance. They've immediately proven to me they shouldn't. I feel like, man, if I'm Bob Nutting, that's where I am with Ben Charrington. I gave you a shot to do something. You haven't done anything. And again, please don't think that I'm forgetting how difficult Bob Nutting makes it here. I remember all that. I know what he does. I know his downfall too. I just know that he put public pressure on this team to actually make changes and get this ship turned around this year. And I've seen the management team in the dugout scramble and start changing things and doing things differently and stop applying analytics in certain ways and start um, playing players that they hadn't been playing and start they completely eliminated the rest schedule that they had these guys on where they were sitting just about every other day, it felt like, or God forbid they got a couple hits. They certainly didn't play the next day. I think they've made a lot of those changes. They bring in Gene Lamont, they get rid of the liaison between the analytics and the coaching staff. I think they did a lot of those things and they did a lot of that heavy lifting, and Ben Charrington got out of the way and let it happen. So cool. But what's Ben Charrington done? I mean, I guess you can say like, well, it's early to expect trades, Garrett. Well, geez, like Boston Red Sox just traded a franchise cornerstone yesterday out of the blue. Rafael Devers. I mean, if you can pull off a trade like that, I think the Pirates can manage to get themselves a competent left fielder with all of the pitching they've got. So I say again, like, why aren't you doing anything if you're here? If you've got an actual chance, Ben Charrington, to change the narrative or change this team's direction or what's going on with them, why aren't you? And if you're not, I got to ask Bob Nutting, hey, why not make that tough decision now? Why not just get that knocked out? You don't need to have his permanent replacement in place. You just need somebody that is going to pull the trigger on something, because there's no way people aren't asking for players. In fact, I know for a fact people are asking for certain players. And I can't tell you that some of those players leaving here would make this team better. Not this year anyway. And maybe that is the real reason Ben Charrington hasn't done anything, because everybody that people have been calling on that are realistically in line to get traded, that is, I should say, aren't going to bring back help for this team. They're only going to weaken this team. So he's just not doing it. I'm not even going to talk about the individual player performances all that much because it just doesn't matter. If you're a pitcher and wore black and gold this weekend, you probably had a pretty good outing. In fact, I'm wearing my pit hat for Isaac Matson, who has just started his Pirates career giving up absolutely nothing, not even a hit since he started. He has just been lights out, and celebrate it. That's a good thing. There's nothing that you have to hate about that just because it's on this team and it was part of 3 losses this weekend. Isaac Matson's been awesome. Celebrate something fun like that, you know? What I'm trying to get to here is this team has nowhere near enough offense, and this GM hasn't done a blessed thing to improve it. Just nothing. Not even like a smart waiver wire pickup. There's just been nothing. There's been nothing. When we come back, I want to talk about a couple examples of guys that I think have more than gotten a fair shake, and it's time to move on from them. Okay? Whether we have a good answer or not, at some point you have to pull the trigger. If you're running a business, you know every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had a service emergency, like a burst pipe. If the first plumber didn't answer, did you wait or did you just go ahead and call the next one? That's why having a reliable business line is so important. And that's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the number one business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more who's handling this stuff. OpenPhone is offering Locked On Pirates listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonmlb. That's OPENPHONE.com/lockedonmlb. And if you have existing numbers with another service already, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. No missed calls, no missed customers. That's OpenPhone. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. I appreciate you guys so much because this team has just not been something that I would want to think about an awful lot outside of watching the games because I'm that kind of masochist. But for you to show up here every single day wanting to hear what I have to say about a team that you know isn't good, it means a lot to me. So hit subscribe and like and tell your friends about it. I appreciate you guys so much for being here. Tommy Pham stinks. Okay, segment 2 is over. Early on in spring training, though, the Pirates were working with Pham on his swing. I say this because it's important, I think, to note they didn't just bring him in here and assume everything that he was doing last year while he played on 3 different ball clubs and hit terribly for all 3 of them was something that he could come back and do. I think if anything, they're probably looking at his numbers the year before, and thinking that he can recapture it or something. But they're working on his swing. And 3 weeks in, he actually told the press and his team he was done with their attempts and he was going to go back to what he knows works. Well, listen, I'm not saying the Pirates had some kind of formula that would make him better. Not for sure, anyway. But his way has gotten him a 196 average in 153 at bats with 0 home runs. The truth is, he was done before he signed, like we all said at the time. But 150 at bats? Come on. It's enough. It's been enough. Alexander Canario has gotten a really nice look because of how bad Pham has been and because Donnie Kelly came on and wanted to try something else. But he's now gotten 130 at bats. It's produced a 208 average and a 585 OPS. Okay. I mean, like, he's 25. He's been DFA'd by 2 teams. He's out of options. And he can't find a consistent at bat in one of the league's worst offenses. Like, this team is so starving for offense, even like a 650 OPS probably has this guy still looking interesting. The problem is the logical replacements for these guys, well, they aren't all that much better, or at least they aren't sure things. This has now turned into a bench role, okay? Regardless of what you brought Tommy Pham in here for, that's what it's become. The Pirates always get these guys who had acceptable stats a couple years ago, and for some reason, they ignore the very real reason they dropped off the table. You have to move on when you've made a mistake like that. And now you're down to like the point where even Tommy Pham's prorated salary is like $2.5 million. Move on. Move on. Nobody's going to trade for him. I laughed out loud when I saw that rumor that the Padres were interested. If the Padres were really interested and they didn't trade Tommy Pham, I don't care what they were getting back. If that news comes out that that's real, that was more than just a rumor. I mean, listen, I already called for the guy's head in the first segment. Do I need to do it again in the second? So what can the Pirates do internally here? I mean, let's be real. A trade is what you need to do. There's a reason that a lot of people don't want to talk about these call-ups, because if you do one of these call-ups, well, that's your new starter. That has to be how it goes, because you can't bring them up here and sit them on the bench like you are with Tommy Pham. I think Adam Frazier's super hot streak has kind of come to a slowing down point, at least to the point where you don't have to try to force his bat into the lineup anymore. Okay. So you don't have to play him in the outfield, but it is something that you can keep in your back pocket as an option. If you really want to do it, there's ways. Okay. You can still get him in there. But if you bring somebody up, it's got to be somebody who's going to start. And here's where we get into trouble, because you guys aren't going to like the first name I'm going to have, but it's going to be Jack Suwinski. I mean, Jack Suwinski is a lot of things. In Indianapolis, he's still striking out way, way too freaking much. 46 strikeouts he's had down there in, 135 at bats. Not good enough. And that's probably going to turn into more up here. I'm not sitting here telling you I think he's fixed everything. But I think there comes a point with a player where you can kind of admit what you have. Because in those 135 at bats, he's also hit 9 home runs in a ballpark that doesn't give them up easily in Indianapolis, against pitching that is nowhere near the caliber it is in the majors. I completely acknowledge that. All right. But Jack Suwinski is a guy that I don't think this team can afford to just leave down there. Bring him up and start him for a string of games. I mean, he's got an 880 OPS, a 267 average, 9 home runs. I almost don't care about anything else. We know he can play the defensive side of things. To me, answer this freaking question. Okay, even if you think you know the answer, if you were going to just cut him, you would have. You've got options. That's what they're there for. He's doing probably the top end of what Jack Suwinski can do. In fact, his 267 average that he's carrying right now is higher than any he's ever posted ever in the minors. His next highest is 262. I mean, and that was split amongst real low level minor leagues. So, I mean, it's time. Get him up here. You may be sick of seeing him. I'm not even sitting here telling you that home fans wouldn't boo him. I'm not even telling you I think it'll be successful. But wouldn't you be better off finding out? Don't you think the chances of him running into 1 or 2 in a month are better than Tommy Pham ever running into 1? What are we doing here? We don't have a left fielder on this team. We need a lefty bat, too. Get him up here. This should not be a question. Bam for Suwinski right now, and boom, put him on a schedule to be the starter. Sit him against lefties by all means. But get him up here. Find out for sure. Give him the rest of this freaking season. I don't want any doubts. I don't want any doubts. And you're not going to hurt this team. Get him up here and do it. Enough of this. If you, for some reason, can't bring yourself to cut Tommy Pham and you just think it's that important to have a guy rot on the bench I actually identify with that. I don't want like Nick York or Billy Cook rotting on the bench. So if you feel like that's the way it's going to play out and you've just got to have somebody rotting, fine. I don't care. But even then, man, I'd rather you do that with Solak. Have Solak come up here and rot. He's 30 years old. We don't care about his future any more than we care about Tommy Pham's. Just move on from what's not working. That's all I'm asking. Put Jack Sawinski out there, and then against left-handed pitching, put Canario out there. Let's leave it there for a month, 2 months. Let's see how that goes. All you're doing is delaying the inevitable anyway. I know he's coming back up here if he stays healthy. You know he's coming back up here if he stays healthy. Get him up here and do it. It's you have no power on this team. And you have your two biggest power options anywhere near the top level rotting in AAA between Jack Sawinski and Matt Gorski. There ain't room for both of them to come up here and play a lot. So that's why I'm not calling for both of them to come up. And honestly, Jack has had more success at the major league level. I'm all about it. Let's do this. Let's do this. Enough is enough. Enough's enough. Maybe I'm going overboard with it being Jack Sawinski, and it really should be Nick York or Billy Cook. I don't care. Do that. That's fine. You're capable of making another decision. But to me, I have a little bit of time on Nick York. He's younger. He's hitting okay. Billy Cook's doing well, but he's still striking out a lot. And he's not hitting any home runs. That's not going to help this team as much as Jack Sawinski running into one once or twice a week, once or twice every 2 weeks, whatever. I could even say 3 home runs a month is outpacing most of his teammates. Let's just do it. Okay? It's what's here. And if you're not going to make a trade, at least use what you do have. At least try what you do have. When we come back, let's talk about the rotation a little bit because that is not a pain point. And I think that does require a little bit of nuance to talk through. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Let's talk a little bit about something good on this team for once, the starting rotation. And yes, I do think even Mitch Keller is good, right? 2 runs and another quality start that didn't net him a win in this weekend series. Another frustration point. That 5th spot, though, there's been a lot of controversy about it this year, and I think it's mostly because it was predetermined, at least to a lot of fans, what was going to fill that 5th spot and how long it was going to be before that 5th spot was filled with the guy that they've decided should be here already, Bubba Chandler. Now, I've spent some time on this show telling you some of my concerns about Bubba Chandler, and I've told you some of the things that I think he needs to work on, and the things I think that we will see him work on. a lot of fans tend to kind of go to this hater thing, whenever they're frustrated that you're talking about a player that they've decided is a superstar already, and you're pointing out ways that that player is not a superstar. Well, all I can tell you is I think Bubba's going to be really good. I also think Bubba's going to take a little bit of work. And I also don't think that they are forced into doing that work right now. Carmen Majinski got a shot early. And Carmen Majinski, I think, did enough to prove at least the theory of his capability. Okay. I want you to think about Clay Holmes a little bit. I've compared actually Carmen Majinski and Kyle Nicholas to Clay Holmes. Incredible stuff. Never really felt like he was going to make it as a starter because he was injured quite often. And his stuff, while really, really good, I felt would have to be tamed down too much in order to make a go at being a starter. In order to stretch himself out, I thought he was going to have to cut back on his velocity a little bit, try to pitch to contact, and that's not his game. He's more of a strikeout type pitcher, at least as far as the stuff goes, right? So when they decided to go and try the starter thing, I was okay with it, if only because, I like Carmen, and he always was a starter, but I had those same concerns, and I think over the course of his outings, he proved at least that it's feasible, okay? So that does two things. First of all, he's back in the bullpen now, thankfully, and I do think we need him in the bullpen. But what he's done by being competent in that little stretch of games that the Pirates gave him is he's made himself now in that class of starting pitchers that you could potentially move for offense. Okay? I'm not looking to get rid of talent, but you have to give to get. And Carmen Majinski made himself a lot more valuable by the way he started the season. Because he proved it's possible, there are teams out there that will target somebody like that who's got 3-4 years of control left and just started showing you that they could be something as a starter or a reliever. You have the reliever side to fall back on as a safety net. You've got that starter side as a potential upside. You can sell that to your fan base. You can sell that to your organization. You can use that in a couple different ways. It makes him a valuable pitcher. It makes him more valuable than if he was just a reliever. And I know that sounds funny, but unless you're the closer, you're not going to get that big overpay at the deadline that you guys fantasize about. Okay? I think Carmen Majinski has done a lot to add to his value this year. And that's aside from the fact of whether I think he actually has a future as a starter here. I think he could. Mike Burrows, well, he was the next in line to get a shot. In fact, a direct replacement to get a shot. And I think he showed you in Chicago a taste of why. A changeup is a special pitch. That curveball is a special pitch. And he's unlocked something with the fastball that he did not have before this season. And that is that he can ramp it up to 95 to 98. He used to always sit around 92, 93. It was one of the things that I always talked about where he was always going to have to pitch backwards. I always talked about this as he was coming up through the system. I felt like he was always going to have to pitch backwards at the major league level. Well, because he's added that velocity a little bit and he's commanding it, Mike Burrows has turned himself into somebody that, man, he looks like a real honest to God shot at a starting pitcher. I loved what I saw. His outing in Chicago was great. Great. And he got pulled after 5 1/3 innings. I'm not sure why. I think they could have let him go a little bit longer. But the changeup is just a difference maker. It kept everybody off balance. The curveball looks like it's falling out of the sky. By the time it gets there, it's so high. I don't know how anybody pulls the trigger on it. He was getting pop-ups on it over and over and over again. I just think there's a lot of potential there. So you can spend your time, and Braxton Ashcraft has come up here. I'm sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. Braxton Ashcraft has come up here, and I think he's just been dominant in the bullpen. He had one bad outing. And I say bad loosely, but he's had one outing that wasn't flawless. Let's say that. He's been really good, really good. And he seems to have embraced the fact that he'll do anything to help the team, including that. Thomas Harrington has turned things around at the minor league level. He started out awful. He was the one they chose to come out of camp and like work with this team. It shocked the hell out of me when they did it, and it didn't last very long. And then he went down to the minors and suffered for a minute. Just starting to see the Thomas Harrington that I've seen all the way up recently. Last couple games have looked a lot better for Thomas Harrington, much more like himself. Bubba Chandler, mostly great. Few real stinkers. Last one, he didn't even get out of the first inning. I think he got 2/3 of an inning and walked like 4 guys or whatever. Listen, that's not the norm either, and I'm not allowing that to define Bubba Chandler, but I don't think Bubba Chandler's ready. So I don't think we need to whine about it. Especially not when you've got guys like Mike Burrows and Carmen Mlodzinski doing what they're doing when they get their opportunities. You don't just throw away prospects because you think there's another one that you wanted to see and it didn't work out. Okay? These guys are important too. These guys are going to help form this bullpen. These guys are going to help form this rotation. These guys are going to give you the depth, if not the actual pieces, to go out and get what you need. Provided we have a competent person actually making those decisions. That's another hurdle that we've got to get through. Listen, this was a rough weekend. I really felt like they could have won all 4 of these games. I think you probably do too. But I also think they're on the wrong side of that 500-ish ability. And I think if they come up against a team that knows how to win, like the Cubs, they're probably going to wind up falling on the wrong side of that 500 mark most of the time. That's just the way this team's built. Thank you, Ben. At least you can say you're actually getting the team that he intended right now. What you're watching right now is what he intended. And it's what he meant by competitive, too. Never forget that what Ben Cherington means by competitive is what Arizona did a couple years ago, where they squeaked into the playoffs with 84 wins and got all the way to the World Series. That's competitive to Ben Cherington. Not winning the NL Central. Get it? Maybe more than anything, that's why we need a new GM. That's all I got for you today. Night off tonight for the Bucks. So you can expect me to probably do a bunch of conceptual stuff tomorrow on the show. And I haven't quite figured out what all that's going to be yet, but we will have a good time. Show up, listen to the Buccos talk that I have for you tomorrow on Locked On Pirates. Let's go Bucks.